I see you finally mastered your weapon. Well, I still want to keep playing it. You could just do it for fun. But come on, give me a good reason. Well, I could restart your progress and let you remaster it. Remaster? Ladies, gentlemen, and most of all ages, my first game in the Monster Hunter series was Monster Hunter World, which I put multiple thousands of hours into. But since then, I have gone back and played the vast majority of the games in the series, or at the very least, a game in each generation, with plans to do even more of that in the future. One thing that I constantly find myself saying when I do this is, I wish this was the current Monster Hunter game for a bit. I wish all the people who have only recently found the Monster Hunter series would get to experience this, not just individually, but together in a wave in the way that a new game release also creates. This type of group interaction where everyone who is enjoying the game is doing so at the same time, so we all want to talk with each other about it and we all want to play together. And as such, a very simple idea came to mind. What if Capcom remastered every older Monster Hunter game, or at least a couple of the earlier ones, specifically in a similar style to how the Pokemon series has remastered each of their earlier generations, one at a time with very slight changes aside from graphical upgrades, to keep the generally pure gameplay experience. What is to say that Capcom couldn't, in theory, take after their concepts and recreate those earlier games, and if they did, is that something that the community would want? Well, if you care about my opinion at all, I believe every single earlier Monster Hunter game is worth experiencing for its own reasons if you love the series, even just to see where it all started if nothing else. But there are various versions of the combat system that are unique to a certain generation, and honestly not even a certain generation, but specific games. Things like the medium bowgun was only a part of one game, not even the generation, the one game. Longsword in second generation was probably in my favorite state that Longsword has ever been, long before parrying or Helmbreaker was a thing. While I don't think that the games necessarily need to be remade so far as they are still absolutely worth playing in the state that they are currently, but the servers for older games are either non-existent or extremely difficult to access depending on your resources, meaning multiplayer is not really a thing. Thus, why a remaster actually has a good amount of credence in my mind. Less for actual changes to the way that the game functionally works, and more to create updated multiplayer servers and bring a surge of players into said servers all at one time together with the release of the game. You could argue for a few things being changed on a more mechanical level, as a lot has changed in Monster Hunter since, well, Monster Hunter. We could update the movement engine, allow you to have a bit better control of your character, but there are obvious counter-arguments that this would totally devalue the experience as a whole. The way that the games were originally balanced included the difficulties of the movement systems within, and so a faithful remake should in fact be a remaster, not a remake, as changing things like that would make the whole experience feel different. Whether that experience would be better or not is an argument of itself, of course, but at least in my opinion, the main reason to recreate an old Monster Hunter game is to let people feel how the combat was, feel how the loop was. The majority of the monsters in the original games do return in later entries to the series, so it's not just about the monsters. It's about the genuine feel of old school Monster Hunter. It's about revisiting the locations that you'll never find again, the characters that you only find again in the weird wormhole dimension that is Generations, and all the tiny little passionate details that the Monster Hunter team leaves in their games. As a result, while this would be a much smaller project than creating a full-on new Monster Hunter game, it would definitely need people dedicated and passionate about giving people the proper classic hunting experience.
Perfect, babe. They're just perfect.
Over the last few years, Monster Hunter as a franchise has continued to grow, and while this is mostly due to the newer games such as the World and the Iceborne expansion, as well as Rise and also Stories 2 to a certain extent, I could totally see Capcom deciding to dedicate another team to a new Monster Hunter project, and remasters seem like a very relatively easy thing for them to do compared to how well it would likely be received, and how much enjoyment that we would both get out of it. One thing I almost hope that they would do is add in some more cutscenes, get more voice acting all around the place, mostly just make everything feel more grandiose without changing the actual combat itself for the gameplay loop around it, though all of this is just my thoughts on the matter, and while I have played these earlier games myself, I don't really know how many of you out there have that kind of desire to do that yourselves. How far back in the series have any of you gone after whichever game that you started with? If they did remaster an earlier game in the series, would you be interested in playing that? Or do you specifically only play the more modern games with the knowledge that the modern feel is what you enjoy? There's absolutely nothing wrong if that is the case, but I am quite interested to know what people think on the matter. Personally, as long as it doesn't take anything away from the creation of the new main series games, I wouldn't mind this happening in the slightest. However, if it was in direct contention with some other kind of spin-off Monster Hunter series, I'm not sure. I think I might actually prefer to see a new spin-off game in another genre before seeing remasters of the older main series games, but that comes from the perspective of someone who, as I've mentioned, has managed to go back and play a number of the earlier titles in the series even now. With that, I have no idea what the average hunter thinks on the matter. Let's say that Capcom decides to dedicate one new team to a new Monster Hunter game. Would you rather they work on remasters or something totally different and unlike what we've seen before? Not even in the same genre, just things that are nothing alike. Maybe we could get a 2D fighting game where we play as the monsters or something like that. That'd be kick-ass. Alright everyone, I've been Cotton Dinosaur, and this has been a little chat about the concept of older Monster Hunter games being remastered and re-released to the public with updated graphics and fresh servers. Is this something that you'd be interested in playing if they did make them? Would you prefer something new entirely that happens to be Monster Hunter themed, or just somewhere in the Monster Hunter universe? Like if you liked the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.